Hello, everybody. Welcome to Managerial Accounting Process Costing. This is part one, where we're going to be computing equivalent units using weighted average. So we have here a sample question. We're manufacturing breakfast cereal, and we use process accounting to transfer costs between departments. On November 1st, we had 20,000 units in its beginning inventory that were 80% complete with respect to materials and 30% complete with respect to conversion. In addition to the beginning inventory, we started and completed 300,000 units. Our ending inventory consisted of 40,000 units that were 25% complete with respect to materials and 20% complete with respect to conversion. On November 1st, 2023, we had the following costs in our beginning inventory. We had 110,500 in materials and 107,400 in conversion. And then during the month, we had 549,500 in materials and 483,000 in conversion costs. So the first part we're going to be going through and looking at is what is the equivalent units of direct materials and conversion for the month of November. So as we're looking at this again, what is our goal here? Our goal is to figure out what costs did we, or how much did we finish, and how much do we take out of our materials and conversion, put that into finished goods inventory, and then how much do we have remaining, which should be our ending inventory. So let's go ahead and take a look at this question. So right over here, and I'll try to make this a little bit bigger. So let's take a look at this. So the first thing is I'm using T accounts because T accounts are the best way to go through and to show for process and job order costing, best way to go. So let's think about what we're trying to do here. So I've got my beginning direct materials, my direct materials during the month. And so then that will ultimately get my ending direct materials. So the first thing I'm going to go through over here and do is my beginning direct materials are 110,500. My materials cost during the month of November was 549,500. Remember, work in process is an inventory account. It is an asset, right? As I'm going through and I'm recording assets, right? My assets are equal to my liabilities plus my owner's equity, DC, right? The darker comedic, the darker than the Marvel universe. But over here, my assets are going to be recorded with debits. I increase them with debits and decrease them with credits. So right over here, this is my, basically my total. I've got 110,549,500. I've got a total of $660,000 in direct materials. Also over here for conversion, I started out over here with 107,400. And then over here, I had 483,000 in conversion costs. So my beginning conversion, and then my conversion during the month, right? What is conversion? Conversion is going to be my direct labor plus my factory overhead, or those costs that are basically going through. And I'm basically trying to convert those direct materials into finished products. FGI is finished goods inventory. WIP is work in process. So these are my costs. How do I get them over? I'm going to get these over with the concept of, or with the process of using what we call equivalent units. If I'm looking at this, my ending direct materials inventory should be reflective of, well, I have 40,000 units that were 25% complete with respect to materials. And those 40,000 units were 30% complete with respect to conversion, or we're 20% complete with respect to conversion. So my ending inventory amounts over here should be reflecting my, basically the cost of like those units, right? And I'm going to be shipping out these costs over here. And again, I'm just showing you this right now. We're going to do this on a later video, but I want you to understand the concept in terms of what we're trying to do. We have these costs sitting in here. We have clearly gone through and we have finished product, right? I've moved product over, but I've got to try to figure out how much am I going to be going through and moving over. So let's take a look at our units. We're only going to be looking at units from this point forward, because this is what we're going to need first before we get into the below. So I have beginning inventory units of a total of 20,000. So these are my units. And then I have started and completed. My started and completed were 300,000 units. And I have units in ending inventory. My units in ending inventory were 40,000 units. So these are the total amounts of units that I have. Now, what I want to do is I say, oh, I've got 360,000 units, 40,000 are remaining. So I'm going to take, 1/9 of it and then just no, but I can't. And the reason is why. When I'm looking at these units, they're not all made the same. For my direct materials, right? For my direct materials, this 40,000 units was only 25% complete. So these units here are different than the started and completed, right? So I cannot compare these 40,000 units in ending inventory to these 300,000 units. Why? It tells me here that my ending inventory consisted of 40,000 units that were 25% complete with respect to materials and 20% complete with respect to conversion. So what am I going to have to do? Well, as we kind of saw in that introduction video that I made, is right over here. We're going to use equivalent units. So 100 units that are 20% complete is the same as 20 units that are 100% complete. So over here, when I'm going through and doing this, my ending inventory, 40,000 units times 25% complete. So my equivalent units for direct materials for my ending inventory is going to be 10,000. Okay, so right over here, this is going to be 10,000. My started and completed is always going to be the started and completed amount at 100% because I finished these all during the period. Now, for the beginning inventory units, this is very important. When we are doing weighted average, we are going to disregard the percent complete. So where it says here 80% complete with respect to materials, I'm going to disregard that. I am going to assume that this was 100% complete. I'm going to say weighted average assumption. I'm going to assume that it was 100% complete during the period. So again, when I'm looking at direct materials equivalent units, when I look at the ending inventory was only 25% complete. Therefore, in order to make this number comparable to the 300,000 above, I have to multiply it by 25%. Because 40,000 units at 25% is the same as 10,000 units as 100%. So my total direct materials equivalent units are going to be 330,000. That's my first part. Now let's take a look at our conversion equivalent units. What is conversion? It is direct material, it's direct labor and factory overhead. It's what the cost to convert those direct materials into finished products. Now, for the ending inventory for conversion, right over here, it was 20% complete with respect to conversion. So this is going to be for my ending inventory, 8,000 units at 100% are the same as 40,000 units at 20%. So over here, this is going to be 40,000 times 20%. Okay. Now, the rest of this here is going to be exactly the same. Started and completed was at 100%. And again, over here, even though my conversion was only 30% complete, I don't care. What I'm going to do over here is I'm going to assume that it was 100% complete during the period. This is my weighted average assumption. So my total equivalent units for conversion under weighted average is going to be a total of 328,000. So again, as we're going through and doing this, the first step in the process is to compute our equivalent units. Remember, the overall goal, we've got these costs and beginning and cost during the month. I'm trying to figure out how much do I go through and put into finished goods inventory. So I want to thank you for joining me here today. Please leave any kind of questions that you might have below. And I really, truly appreciate you liking and subscribing to these videos. Have a great day.